everyone, and welcome to Level Up with Patreon. Today, I have Thomas with me. Thomas, why don't you start off by introducing yourself, what you do in your day-to-day, and where you're from?
Thanks, Carissa. So my name's Thomas Paule. I'm the CEO of Visory. Visory's mission is to release founders, owners, operators from their financial back office. So we do this by connecting SMEs to a marketplace of certified financial experts via our platform. And we help to deliver sort of best practice, quality assured workflows to complete the given work at hand. And we sort of define that financial back office as anything from bookkeeping to accounts payable, receivable to payroll services.
Now, Thomas, as the director and founder of Visory, how do you approach developing the company's overall business strategy?
It's a great question, really. So we sort of think business strategy requires like a mix of micro and macro elements. So the analogy we talk about often internally is it's almost like driving a car, right? So when you drive a car, you've got to look out onto the road and the horizon ahead, sort of the macro view, but you've got to look at your dashboard, your key indicators. Do you have fuel? What speed are you going, etc., to make sure that you don't run off course or off the road as well. So we like to define the two elements, like the macro elements of what's happening in the economy, the job markets, what's happening in the capital markets, and then the micro. So that's really for us, like, what are our customers saying about us? Have what we've built, does it have product market fit? Are people liking it? Are they staying with the product over time? And so one of the key parts of that is really just talking to our customers and ensuring that, we really understand where their pain points are, and we sort of are able to execute on improving those over time. I think one of the dangers with building your business strategy around that mix is getting out of weight too far one way or the other. So if all you do is look at the macro picture, you'll probably, like I said, miss the opportunity in front of your eyes around customers and their feedback and what they want. But if you build your product and your business and your strategy only around customer feedback, there's also a danger relating to the kind of the faster horse, analogy we sometimes use, where customers don't always know what they want. So I think taking a balanced view and a mix of those two elements is key around business strategy. I would also say that, although I'm, a founder and a business leader, business strategy is no sort of one person's job. I do spend a fair portion of my time thinking about it, but what I also think about is how do I enable other people in the business and create a culture where everybody's thinking and understanding business strategy. And so if I haven't created that in my role, I think Visory has missed a trick. So what we try to do is we try to have everybody understand the business strategy. We try to have them consider it, debate it, and adjust it. And the more thinking we have in that mix, we think the better. We think it's additive to our overall business strategy. I've certainly learned a lot around what we should be doing by speaking to our people and having them debate me on key issues. And so sometimes that leads to meetings where they become a little bit organic, a structured meeting, we have an agenda, and then we go off in this organic fashion. But I like to let that run for that very reason, because I think context is king. And I love the passion that comes out in those sessions, and try to, as best we can, foster a culture where everybody owns the business strategy.
I am curious to learn a bit more about your approach to the macro strategy. How do you sort of stay on top of trends that are happening for you to dive into building that strategy? Do you plug into certain, news outlets, or do you find yourself in certain groups?
So I'm a big believer in being a sort of a lifetime learner. I consume at least 2 to 3 hours of content a day, sort of a habit of mine, probably an hour during my workday where I'll read something, watch something, meet someone. You can learn from others, meet an interesting person who will give you an expanded view of the world, and then at least 1 to 2 hours outside of work a day to consume podcasts. I watch a lot of YouTube. I read a lot of articles, and the world is full of information. It's about finding your way to the things that matter most, having a well-rounded view of the world. I think there's a lot of the danger with the self sort of publicated media out there is that you can get very, very linear views of the world. So you need to make sure you're having a balanced view across both sides of politics, across the spectrum of ideas, and I certainly search for that and try not to subscribe to any one set of ideals too hard. be open-minded, and I think, applying what you listen and learn to your job is key. So it's no point, consuming all that knowledge and information unless you bring it back and debate it with the team. And I guess I think of that as my role a lot of the time. Like, it's to enable good people to do great work, and remove any blockers, but not get in their way, and to spend more of my time in my role, looking at the road ahead and the horizon, whilst making sure the dials on the dashboard are also in check in the business.
Do you have favorite creators or podcasts that you'd love to plug?
Yeah, look, this might not be a surprise to anybody, but there's a podcast called the All In Podcast. Like, it's probably my favorite. I'm a religious one on that. Like, it's a weekly drop. I'm religious. I never miss it. I always listen to it or watch it on YouTube on the first day. So for those unfamiliar, it's sort of 4 technology billionaires out of the States, pretty much giving their macro and micro views on the world. They're all from different backgrounds and sides of politics, and look, it's got a little bit of US centricity to it, which us Aussie and New Zealanders and others need to filter out for. But I think fundamentally they've always got their finger on the pulse on big macro shifts in economies, global politics, and technology.
What are some of the most effective marketing strategies you've used to grow your business?
So we have a fundamental belief that the best type of marketing and the best type of marketing strategy, therefore, is to play in spaces where others are not. There's a famous line from Peter Thiel, author, investor, entrepreneur. There's a fantastic book called 0 to 1. The famous line in that book is competition's for losers. So people often sort of take this mindset that, we're going to go and compete and, we'll be better than the next. And, he challenges people in that book. And I've certainly seen this play out in business that, it's actually to not compete is the best way of succeeding, to have less competition in your market space. So we sort of think, relating to marketing strategies, that we want to play in spaces people are not. We don't want to compete, right? And it's very much at the core of the sort of business that Visory's building. We sort of feel that the mix of services in the financial back office, and we sort of defined that earlier as, bookkeeping, payroll, accounts payable and receivable. We just feel like there's not a well executed, scaled up brand and marketing program and sales program in that space. It's very much a sort of an industry dominated by sole practitioners and smaller businesses and brands, and our strategy is to work with them, partner with them, collaborate with them, offer those people the ability to come and work on our platform, meet customers, earn good money. But we just don't think that, individually, that they represent a scaled up brand like many other industries. So we at Visory want to be the brand that represents that financial back office. We actually think it's incredibly important as a service to small businesses. And importantly, all of those great people in that community that deliver those services need someone that represents them and their interests, and gives them pathways to customers and all these wonderful things. So that's, I guess, Visory's mission relating to our marketing strategy, to play where others are not. I think the second point I'd make on all of that is that, and this is probably more of a tactical point, but we're starting to firm up a view that SEO and search is not a sort of a competitive moat that you can put around your business in the local Australian, New Zealand market. I think the search volumes are just not large enough here that it can't be treated like many businesses do in the US, where they get sort of an SEO and search program that's dominant. It gives them a competitive advantage. We sort of feel like the competitive advantage in smaller markets like Australia are to build really great B2B channel partnerships. So what are the businesses one step left or step right of you? For Visory, that means that we want great channel partnerships with accountants. We are a form of support to that accounting community. There's key inputs from the bookkeeping cycle that help drive accounting efficiency. So, we're really interested in having more relationships, collaborative, co-beneficial relationships with accountants, where we feed one another business back and forth, and ultimately can deliver something additive to them in their cycle. So that would be my take on marketing.
As an expert in digital transformation, could you share 3 tips or approaches that you've used in rolling out new technology within your firm?
I guess technology adoption's a really key component of our business. So ultimately, the experts that we certify into our marketplace, they exclusively use the Visory platform to work, and we are always making updates and changes to that platform. So it's really important that those individuals understand the changes, the reasons for the changes, and so we sort of break that down into sort of three elements. The first is that they go through a certification process. That means that they've been trained, screened, and onboarded correctly. So they're familiar with the product. We train them on the software product that we use every single day to deliver our service, and they're very, therefore upskilled and comfortable with it. I think people fear the unknown. So as long as you teach and learn and listen, that you stand a chance to succeed on that front. We also provide lots of release notes and an open door policy on product feedback. A lot of product development around technology tends to be closed shop. We try to keep it open and transparent on what we're doing. We actually run a 2-weekly sprint cycle, so we deploy every 2 weeks, and we actually involve users, being those experts in our marketplace, in our sprint review every 2 weeks, which is to show them what we're about to deploy into production. And so we've built a culture of gathering their feedback before we deploy, and sort of that starts to build, I think, overall a coalition of the willing, we call it. People that understand where you're coming from, can advocate for you, can guide you on where you might be misguided, and we're not always right. We make mistakes, we're human. And I think just overall the best policy here for rolling out new technology is to over communicate and try and build sort of a group of people that can come on a journey with you, rather than, here is this thing, force it down your throat, you have to eat it. People often, sort of don't like that. And it's never a good sort of policy to get success out of this space.
The next question that we had was actually a question from our previous guest. So we had Lawrence on the show previously, and Lawrence has put forward the question to yourself, asking, what is your plan to manage rising costs over the next 2 to 3 years?
A good question. Thanks, Lawrence. So look, I think one of the, we go back to business strategy and the macro micro elements. I think one of the views that we started to form early was the economy had an abundance of liquidity in the system. We started to form the view that capital markets were perhaps a little bit overly optimistic, let's call it. And we moved early on cost management as Visory anyway. And I'm very grateful that we took that view, because it's held us in good stead through this time. So I think we're doing all the basic things that everybody would do in a rising cost environment. So, renegotiating key vendor contracts, managing the P&L tightly. But I think because we moved early, it allows us the opportunity to be counterintuitive a little bit, which is, while everybody else is worrying about their cost base over the next 2 to 3 years, where are obviously you've got to balance your P&L, but where are some areas that we can double down in investment where others are perhaps exiting or retracting? So where are the opportunities for growth? We certainly see that in the marketing and sales landscape. Like, just a really basic example would be our cost per click, sort of on key terms, has moved slightly down, and that's because people are, it's a demand-driven service. They price it on the amount of demand for that key search term. With less demand, the price goes down, so we're able to sort of buy more. And so we're managing the business fiscally responsibly, but we're also looking for those opportunities where people have retracted and there's a chance to do more. Probably my final statement on this is, we determined moving early by doing it sort of this time last year. So 12 months ago, we started to really tuck into this, and it's only been the last 6 where other businesses are starting to realize, oh, this is a sustained downturn, and everyone's got to, be really careful here. I would say that a lot of poorly structured businesses are really now having to take the medicine. I mean, everyone takes it at some point. We just took it early. And I think taking the medicine, people see it as a negative thing. I think it's a wonderful thing. Medicine makes you better. And there's a whole generation of sort of great businesses that are built in these sorts of downturns. You look at the tech wreck of the 90s and other environments like that. Some of the best, most dominant global businesses were built in that environment. And I think people can look at it as, half glass empty, or you can start to take a half glass full view of the world, which is whilst everyone's hurting and lots of non-viable businesses are struggling. If I've got a good business I believe in, how can I maximize my advantage?
If you encounter like a business that has not had a head start like you guys, what sort of advice would you give?
With any of these sorts of exercises, let's say that there's a cost management exercise relating to people, which is never an easy thing. It's probably one of the hardest things that a business would ever have to do. I've seen a lot of lots of businesses, regardless of industry, going through this at the moment. I've seen it in financial services, seen it in technology, seen it in all sorts of. It's not just just our industry. It's all over the place at the moment. I think the businesses that take their medicine once and quickly is good. Like nothing prolonged and drawn out. I think it's already culturally challenging enough. People ultimately, feel at those times, well, what does the future of this place look like? And my co-workers have, maybe been exited from business. I don't think people, like drawn out environments like that. I think you cut once, you cut hard, and then you let everybody know in a transparent fashion. There's no more cuts to be made. We need to get on with this thing. We've not had to do that at Visory, thankfully. It doesn't mean that that's not the reality for a lot of other businesses out there. So, yeah, I guess my advice to them would be, if you haven't sort of taken the medicine yet, once and quickly is good. On people. Yeah, people are just the most important part of a business, and having to let people go, it can be hugely detrimental to your culture. And then on the P&L piece, I just sort of general P&L management. I have this thesis that there's a lot of lazy partners to businesses, and people need to keep those partners accountable, right? So you should never feel embarrassed or ashamed to go and ask for for a discount on a service that's not providing value, or renegotiate a key contract or so on. It's part of managing your business responsibly. So look, other than those two basic things, I can't say too much, but to also ensure that you safeguard the future of your business. And this is what's at stake sometimes in these environments. If the business isn't going to be sustainable, you've got to ask the question, what am I willing to do to ensure that this thing survives?
Thank you so much for coming on to the show. And before I let you go, if people wanted to find out more about yourself or about Visory, where can they go? Where's the best place to connect with you?
Yeah, so obviously www.visory.com.au. You can read all about our business and our values and what we do and how we help and how we partner. So if you're an accountant and a key advisor to SMEs, you rely on high quality month-end data and their financial processes just working in their back office, we'd love to hear from you. We do a lot of partnering in that space. We respect the key relationships that those people have, but can be a really great input and business partner to you. If you'd like to connect with me directly, you can look me up on LinkedIn. I'll look at my messages and respond. So we're happy to connect if you've got any ideas on the points I've discussed today.
Thank you so much again for coming on to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.